Hello everyone. It's wonderful to have you here for today's story. I hope the next few minutes bring you a little peace, a little emotion, and a journey worth listening to. If you enjoy this kind of content, please help support the channel with a like, a share, and a subscription. Every bit of support helps this channel continue to grow. Thank you so much, and now let's begin the story. The first rule at Gull Point Yard was simple. If the metal did not scream, you kept cutting. Eli Mercer had learned that rule from old men with burned hands and tired eyes. Dead ships settled in the rain. Dead ships popped when cold air met warm welds. Dead ships groaned when their frames loosened after years in vacuum. If a worker stopped for every sound inside a hull, he would starve before he sold his first load of copper. So when the sound came from inside the fuel core of the gray transport ship, Eli ignored it. Almost. It was just before dawn, and the whole salvage yard was wet and black under a low sky. Rain tapped the tin roof of Eli's shop. Gull Point Yard sat on a cold earth coastline where old orbital ships came down to die, and the air smelled of salt, oil, rust, and hot wire. Eli lay beneath the belly of the transport, half inside a maintenance gap, his shoulders pressed against frozen alloy. A welding lamp threw blue-white light across the ribs of the ship. His gloves were stiff, and his old knee hurt. The cold core was intact. If Eli pulled it out clean, he could sell it by afternoon and pay Harlan Pike 1 month of back rent. 30 days was a future if you were poor enough. Eli shifted the cutter and started along the seam. The hull gave its usual complaints. A dull tick, a tight pop. Then came 3 knocks. Not loud, not metallic. 3 faint taps from somewhere behind the cold core. Eli froze with his thumb still on the cutter switch. Rain beat on the ship above him. A chain creaked in the wind. Far across the yard, a crane motor turned over and died. He listened. Nothing. He exhaled through his nose and told himself it was pressure. Old tanks did that. Old ships lied with sound. He had a rent notice, nailed to his shop wall, and a half-empty tank of cutting gas. He did not have time to chase ghosts and scrap. He set the cutter back to the seam. The 3 knocks came again. This time they were slower. 1, 2, 3. Eli shut off the cutter. The silence after the flame died was so complete that he could hear his own heartbeat inside his ears. He rolled onto one elbow and pressed his gloved hand against the cold plating. The hull trembled under his palm, but not like a machine. It trembled like something on the other side had touched it. No, he whispered. He crawled out from beneath the transport, grabbed the gas meter from his cart, and climbed the service ladder to the fuel access panel. The ship had arrived with clean import papers. No life cargo. No hazardous living biological matter. A dead hauler, sold by weight to Gull Point Yard. The papers said no one living remained inside. Papers were cheap. Life was not. Eli clipped the gas meter to the panel edge. The needle jumped, settled, then jumped again. Cold vapor. Trace coolant. Low oxygen. Something else he did not like. He reached for the main hatch handle, then stopped. The pressure behind it was wrong. If he opened the main hatch, whatever was inside would take the full shock of earth air and yard temperature. He had seen men die from fast pressure changes in training videos with calm narrators and clean rooms. This was no clean room. This was a dead ship in the rain. Eli climbed down, dragged his tool crate closer, and found a smaller inspection port under a layer of ice. He melted the edge with low heat, listening to the ship as if it could answer him. The seam groaned. Pale vapor leaked out. From inside came a cough. It was small, thin, and not human. Eliesterotoitenet. Hold on, he said, though he did not know who could hear him. I hear you. Hold on. He closed the lower valve, then the side bleed, then cracked the inspection port no wider than his hand. Poison cold air rolled over his wrist. A face appeared in the dark. For 1 second, Eli could not understand what he was seeing. Not because the face was strange, though it was. Fine-boned, pale, gray-blue skin, wide eyes reflecting the cutter light, lips cracked from cold. It was the eyes that stopped him. They were focused. Terrified, but focused. A young adult woman, not human, pressed one hand against the inside of the hatch. Her other arm was stretched behind her, blocking something from the opening. "Do not open wide," she rasped. Her English was rough, but clear enough. Eli leaned closer. How many are in there? She swallowed. Her breath fogged. 7 children. Some are sleeping. Some are not. Close the blue line first. Above your left hand. Eli looked up and saw the blue marked feed line. If he had opened the hatch fully, that line would have dumped a pocket of toxic coolant straight into the chamber. He turned the valve until it locked. Done, he said. The woman's shoulders sagged, but she did not move away from the gap. Slow now. Please. Eli opened the inspection port another inch, and a light fell into the fuel core. Children huddled between cables, filters, and frozen conduits. Small alien bodies wrapped in torn insulation cloth. Narrow shoulders. Shaking hands. Eyes too large and thin faces. One child had both arms around a smaller one. Another had a strip of cracked filter pressed to his mouth. A third stared at Eli's cutter and raised both hands as if expecting punishment. Around each neck was a metal band. The woman wore one too, thicker than the rest. It was not jewelry. It was not medical equipment. It had numbers etched into it. Eli had spent half his life reading machine tags. He knew a property label when he saw one. My name is Eli, he said, keeping his voice low. I'm going to get you out, but you have to do exactly what I say. The woman nodded once, then pointed to the smallest child. Tavi first. He cannot warm himself. Eli cut the hatch wider, inch by inch, keeping the heat low and the opening small. He kept talking because silence felt too close to death. That's it. Don't touch the red pipe. Easy now. The child called Tavi was lighter than Eli expected. Too light. Eli wrapped him in his oil-stained jacket and felt the little body tremble against his chest. Tavi's skin was cold enough to scare him. The next child tried to climb out alone and slipped. Eli caught her under the arms. The older child who had held Tavi glared at Eli with exhausted courage. I have him, Eli told her. You can come too. She did not move until the woman in the core spoke a soft word in her own language. One by one, Eli pulled them out of the dead ship. The woman came last. She tried to step down on her own, but her knees failed. Eli caught her, and for a moment she fought him with what little strength she had left. The children, she gasped. They're out, Eli said. All 7. Only then did her fingers loosen. Eli carried her through the rain toward his shop. Behind him, the fuel core of the scrap ship hung open, breathing white vapor into the dawn. Inside Eli's shop, there was not enough of anything. Not enough heat. Not enough clean blankets. Not enough oxygen. Not enough space. He had one cot, one cracked table, 2 lamps, and an ancient wall heater that rattled like loose bolts. Eli set Tavi on the cot, and the woman on a foam mat near the heater. The other children crowded together under the workbench until Eli pulled the bench away from the wall and made them sit where he could see them. No hiding inside machinery, he said gently. Not in here. The oldest girl did not seem to believe him. Eli dragged clear plastic sheeting from the corner, hung it from a pipe, and sealed it with tape. He rebuilt a truck filter, wired it to a fan, and connected the fan to a welding oxygen tank through 2 reducers that would hold if he kept the pressure low. The woman woke while he was fitting the last hose and tried to sit up too fast. Easy, Eli said. You're my shop. The children are here. Her eyes found them. She counted without moving her lips. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Only then did she look at him. Liora Renn, she said. Eli Mercer. The name seemed to mean nothing to her, which was fair. His name did not mean much anywhere beyond Gull Point Yard. The air, she said. Too sharp. Tavi needs warm flow. Not dry. Tell me how warm. She stared at him for half a second, as if the question itself confused her. Then she told him. Eli adjusteth. The mix. He added a pan of warm water beneath the intake to humidify the flow. It was ugly, unsafe by any proper code, and better than nothing. The fan coughed once, then pushed a steady breath through the plastic enclosure. Tavi's chest began to rise more evenly. The older girl watched the fan like it might demand payment. What's her name? Eli asked Liora. Liora touched the girl's shoulder. Nil. The girl flinched when her name was said aloud. Eli Puronet. Did I say it wrong? No, Liora said. Her voice was hoarse. Names are not for inventory hours. Eli looked at the metal bands around their necks. Up close, the markings were worse. Weight class, labor category, condition, lot code. A tiny line of text ran along the underside of Tavi's collar. Attached labor inventory. This was cargo tagging, pretending to be something cleaner. Who put these on you? He asked. Liora did not answer at once. She watched his face, perhaps deciding whether the truth would make him step back. Northstar Haulage, she said at last. They owned the route. They said our families did not own enough land to travel as passengers. They said we could sign as attached labor. Work with ship. Eat with ship. Sleep with ship. Leave when contract is separated. And did they separate it? Leora's mouth tightened. Ship broke. Separation cost more than disposal. A small sound came from behind Eli. One of the children, a thin boy with quiet eyes, had climbed onto the floor scale near the parts shelf. He stood perfectly still, arms down, chin lifted, as if he had done it many times. Hey, Eli said softly. You don't have to stand there. The boy did not move. Liora closed her eyes. Oren, she said in their language, then in English, not here. The boy looked from Liora to Eli. Food after weight. Eli felt something inside him go still. He stepped to the scale and switched it off. No, he said. Food before weight. Food without weight. The boy stared at him as if Eli had said the rain would fall upward. Eli opened a cabinet, found soup and rice, and warmed them slowly so the smell would not overwhelm the children. When he handed Nell the first cup, she tried to pass it to Tavi. There is more, Eli said. She did not believe him until he filled another cup. Tavi drank 2 careful sips, then touched the hose near his face. I used too much air. I can pay later. Leora's eyes went bright with anger, though her body was too weak to hold it. They counted breath during ration failure, she said. Children learned to ask. Eli stood, turned away, and gripped the edge of the workbench until the old wood creaked. He had been poor most of his life. He had known shut-off notices, skipped meals, cold mornings, and bosses who talked about family while cutting hours. But no one had ever made him apologize for breathing. A sharp chirp came from Leora's collar. All 7 children stiffened. The collar blinked once, a small amber pulse. Eli moved toward it. Liora caught his wrist with surprising strength. Do not cut, she said. I wasn't going to cut. Many try. Many do not survive. Eli went still. Tell me. She pointed to the thicker band around her own throat. Mine leads. If mine wakes, there's answer. If there's answer, Northstar finds us. If Northstar finds us, they take us back as unseparated salvage. Salve, Eli repeated. The word tasted like rust. A truck horn sounded outside. Eli looked through the rain-streaked window. Harlan Pike's yard truck rolled toward the shop, its headlights cutting through the gray morning. Harlan was a broad man with a red face, a bad hip, and the frightened temper of someone who owed money to people richer than he was. He climbed out of the truck in a raincoat and stomped toward the shop. Eli stepped outside before Harlan could reach the door. You got my cold core? Harlan demanded. Not yet. Harlan looked past him, saw the plastic sheeting, the oxygen hoses, and the small shapes inside. His face changed. No, he said. Eli, no. Tell me those are not alive. They were inside the fuel core. The papers say clean. The papers lied. Harlan wiped rain from his face. You call them Porter? Not yet. Good. Do not. Harlan lowered his voice. Whatever they are, this is not our fight. That ship came through interstellar customs. It has a lot number. It has ownership. If there are living people in it, then it's a contract problem. A ruinous one. They're children. I can see that, Harlan snapped, then looked ashamed of the sound. He leaned closer. I have 40 men depending on this yard. One wrong claim from Northstar and they freeze our imports. No ships, no work. No work, no rent. No rent, no food. You think you're the only poor man here. Eli said nothing. Harlan's voice softened, but only a little. Move them off my property before the company tracks them. I will pretend I never saw them. Behind Eli, through the thin shop wall, Tavi coughed. Eli looked at the ship, then at the yard, then at the shop with its leaking roof and dying heater. No, he said. Harlan stared at him. No. They stay until they can breathe somewhere safe. You cannot make that call. I just did. Harlan stiffened. Then you better hope your mercy pays rent. He drove away too fast, tires cutting through puddles of oil and rain. Eli went back inside. Liora was watching him through the plastic. He will send them, she said. Maybe. You should not pay for us. Eli stripped off his wet gloves and reached for the scanner he used on engine tags. Too late, he said. Now hold still. I need to see how that collar talks. By noon, the rain had thickened, and the yard had gone quiet in the way it did before trouble. Eli learned the collars in layers. The outer layer was hard metal. The second held a tracking braid. The third ran close to the throat and spine, ready to punish any hand that did not understand it. Machines did not punish. People built machines to do that. He set an old hull plate against the wall and fixed 3 salvage magnets to it. Then he placed the children near it, one at a time, watching the collar pulse on his reader. The signal warped. Not gone, but bent. Good, he muttered. Not enough, but good. Liora watched every movement. You know machines? Old ones. Broken ones. Ones people lie about. Then you know Northstar. Eli glanced at her. She almost smiled, but the effort failed. A knock came at the front door, louder than the one in the ship. Eli opened it with a wrench in one hand. A woman in a dark county medical jacket stood outside, rain dripping from her hood. She was small, with sharp eyes and a rescue bag over one shoulder. June Park, she said. Emergency call for hypothermia and respiratory exposure. Behind her was another woman in a green field coat, carrying a sealed case and a tablet. Mara Holt, she said. Environmental inspection. I got a leak alert from this address, and 3 calls from Pike telling me not to come. That made me come faster. Eli let them in. The shop became crowded. June did not ask whether the children had import papers before she touched them. She checked Tavi's breathing, listened to Nell's chest, and asked Eli what mixture he was pushing through the filter. Ugly, but clever, she said. It will hold for now. Not forever. Mara examined the collars without touching them. Are those restraints? Inventory bands, Liora said. Mara's face hardened. That is a restraint with better branding. June looked at Tavi. Name? Tavi shrank back. Liora whispered to him. He whispered back. Tavi Renn, Liora said. June wrote it down. Tavi stared at the tablet. Not number? He asked. Not on my chart, June said. Something in the shop changed when she said it. Not enough to save them. Not enough to stop Northstar. But enough that Eli noticed Liora breathed differently. A record existed now. Mara checked the ship's import file. Clean salvage declaration. No life cargo. No BUSR. No independent life scan required because the ship came under low-risk mechanical scrap. Mara looked toward the plastic enclosure. I can hold the ship for a leak. I cannot seize it from a galactic carrier without proof they knew. There is proof, Liora said. Everyone turned to her. She touched the torn cuff of her work shirt. Eli had noticed it earlier. The seam was too thick, even for worn fabric. With shaking fingers, Liora pulled out a strip no longer than Eli's thumb. It looked like a sliver of black ceramic. Maintenance memory, she said. Small piece only. I took when they sealed the last corridor. It has route marks. Maybe names. Maybe deaths. Not enough. The real record is still in the ship. Where? Eli asked. Black compartment. Behind cold core. Northstar hides true labor logs there. Port logs are clean. True logs are not. Mara leaned in. Can you prove Northstar knew you were aboard when the ship was sold? Leora's eyes flicked to the children. If the black compartment survives, she said. Yes. Before anyone could answer, a clean white vehicle stopped outside the shop. It did not belong in Gull Point Yard. Not the polished sides, not the quiet tires, not the smooth logo of a silver star on its door. 2 men stepped out. The first wore a dark coat and carried a flat case. His face was calm and narrow, his boots spotless in the mud. Harlan Pike's truck rolled up behind him. Harlan would not meet Eli's eyes. The man in the dark coat stopped at the open shop door and smiled without warmth. Mr. Mercer, he said, my name is Damon Crail. I represent Northstar Haulage. I understand you have located unseparated salvage assets from shipment lot 974. Eli stepped into the doorway. You mean children? Damon's smile did not move. I mean assets still legally attached to a registered transport hull. Northstar appreciates your diligence. We are prepared to compensate you for reporting the discrepancy. You sold them inside a dead ship. The ship was declared clear based on available contract records. If attached units failed to present for separation, that is unfortunate. It does not transfer ownership to a local mechanic. June stepped forward. They are patients under emergency care. Damon turned to her. Northstar is grateful for the temporary care. We have medical transport available. The children pressed closer together. Eli did not look away from Damon. They are not going with you. Damon opened his case. Inside was a tablet, a small scanner, and a stack of printed papers sealed in plastic. Mr. Mercer, I'm told you are behind on yard rent. Northstar can resolve that today. We can pay you a discovery fee, repair any misunderstanding with Mr. Pike, and issue a favorable salvage reference. Or we can file a claim for interference, damage to bonded property, and unlawful tampering with tracking devices. I have no wish to make your life difficult. Eli almost laughed. His life was already difficult. That was how men like Damon found. Handles to pull. How much? Harlan asked before he could stop himself. Damon named a number. It was enough to pay Eli's rent, fix the heater, fill his tanks, and replace his worn cutters. For 1 second, Eli saw the life that money would buy. Then Tavi coughed behind the plastic wall and whispered something that sounded like an apology. Eli closed Damon's case with one hand. No. Damon looked at his fingers on the case. You should think carefully. I did. Damon's eyes shifted past him to Liora. Unit lead, identify. Liora stood slowly. She could barely stay upright, but she stood. My name is Liora Renn. Your contract identifier is required. My name is Liora Renn. The shop went still. Damon sighed, as if disappointed by poor service. Very well. Northstar will initiate recovery protocol if voluntary transfer is refused. Mr. Pike, you may want to consider your liability. Harlan's face had gone gray. Damon turned back to Eli. You have 2 hours. After the vehicle rolled away, Harlan rounded on Eli. You just declared war on a company that buys half this yard's imports. No, Eli said. I refuse to hand over kids. Same thing when you're poor. Mara interrupted before Eli could answer. I can hold the ship under environmental concern for 24 hours if I document an active leak. That keeps them from removing it. It does not stop collar recovery. June checked Tavi's collar. The amber light pulsed faster now. His skin is heating around the band, she said. Liora turned pale. They are testing range. Eli looked at the black ceramic sliver in Leora's hand. Can we read that? Maybe, Liora said, but it is broken. Eli took it to an old maintenance reader on his bench. It had been built for machines nobody used anymore, which meant it still did what it was told. He soldered 2 contacts to the ceramic and coaxed power through. Static crawled across the screen. Then came fragments. Route codes. Maintenance times. Work assignments. Air ration logs. A list of biological signatures with no names attached. Mara leaned over his shoulder. There, Liora said, pointing with a shaking hand. A phrase appeared between broken lines. Disposed with. Material. June read it aloud, then stopped herself, as if the words had cut her mouth. What does that mean? Eli asked, though he already knew. Liora looked at the children. It means contract complete. It means no separation needed. It means if they cut the ship while you're still inside, the file closes clean. No one spoke for several seconds. Mara straightened. This is not enough. It shows practice, maybe. Not intent. Not that Northstar knew this group was inside when they sold the ship. Black compartment, Liora said again. Full record. But they will erase it. Eli checked the time. Damon had given them 2 hours. The collars were already warming. Where is it? He asked. Liora looked at him, and he saw fear there. Not fear of him. Fear of the ship. Fear of the dark place inside it, where she had held children quiet while the world weighed them as metal. Then she lifted her chin. Behind a cold core, she said. Past the blue line. Past the sealed wall. I can show you. You're too weak. You cannot find it without me. I can try. And die in the wrong pipe. The corner of Eli's mouth moved despite everything. Fair. June stepped between them. She can barely stand. Leora's voice was soft but steady. There are other ships, other children, other cores. If we only hide, Northstar closes this file and opens the next. Eli understood, then, that she was not asking to be brave. She was refusing to let survival become silence. He looked at the cold core through the shop window. The thing he needed to sell could also power a signal blocker strong enough to keep the callers asleep. He had one future left. It was bolted inside that ship. Eli picked up his wrench. Mara, write whatever you need to hold that hull. June, keep them breathing. Harlan, if you cut power to my shop, Tavi dies. Decide if you can live with that. Harlan swallowed. Eli looked at Liora. You show me the black compartment. I get us there. The first alarm came 20 minutes later from Tavi's collar. The child jerked awake with a cry, then clamped both hands over his mouth as if cries cost extra. June reached him first. The skin under the collar was flushed and hot. Nil grabbed Tavi's hand and spoke fast in Renari, her voice shaking. Eli was halfway out the door when he heard it. He turned back. Leora's face twisted with helpless fury. Recovery pulse, she said. Only a touch. They are telling us they can. Eli pressed a cooling strip under Tavi's collar. The child trembled. I'm sorry, Tavi whispered. Don't. Eli said, more sharply than he meant. He softened his voice. You don't apologize for hurting. Not here. The collar cooled, but the amber light kept blinking. Eli looked at the cold core again. That was when the choice became a wound. He went back to the ship with a cutter, a pry bar, and the old lift cart. The cold core was worth more than everything else in his shop combined. He had planned to sell it by afternoon. Instead, he cut into its casing and removed the stabilizer assembly that made it valuable. The core would never sell whole now. His rent went with the first cut. His next month went with the second. By the time he dragged the stabilizer back to the shop, Harlan was waiting in the lane. Do you know what you just did? Harlan shouted. Yes. You destroyed the one part one could have sold if Northstar freezes this lot. I bought that ship section. You bought salvage rights, not the right to start an interstellar incident. Eli kept walking. Harlan followed him. They will sue you until your bones are itemized. Eli stopped and turned. Rain ran down his face. Then they can start with the old knee. It already clicks. This is not funny. No, Eli said. It is not. He carried the stabilizer inside. For the next 40 minutes, the shop became a place of ugly invention. Eli stripped the stabilizer, soldered copper from an old engine harness, and bolted the whole mess to a grounded hull plate. He set the frequency by watching the collar pulses until the amber lights stuttered. It was not a cure. It was a wall made of junk against a company that owned satellites. When he powered it up, Tavi's collar dimmed. June let out a breath. How long will it hold? Mara asked. Eli watched the regulator shake on the bench. Long enough if we're lucky. Liora looked at him. And if not, then I build something uglier. She almost smiled again. This time it stayed for a second. They entered the ship through the same hatch where Eli had first heard the knocking. The fuel core was darker now. Torn insulation remained between cables, and tiny scratches marked the inner wall where Tavi had tapped. Liora touched the scratches. He thinks he made noise without permission. Eli had no answer for that. They moved deeper. The air beyond the blue line was poisonous and cold. Eli's mask filters were old, but he had packed fresh charcoal into them and sealed the edges with tape. Liora wore a mask June had modified. Left valve, she said. Eli closed it. Do not step on centigrade. It drops in a wash line. He stepped around it. Orange mark means heat. White mark means pressure. 3 scratches means worker path. Her fingers traced markings so small Eli would have missed them. A hidden map scratched by poor workers for other poor workers. The hidden route markers led them to a sealed wall behind the ruined cold core. Eli scanned it. No handle. No handle for us, Liora said. Northstar opens from outside with command key. Workers open when command key forgets them. She knelt, weak but precise, and pointed to 3 tiny cuts near the lower seam. Eli followed them. Behind the panel, he found a manual latch covered in frost and grime. Smart, he said. Hungry people become good engineers, Liora said. The latch resisted. Eli heated it slowly, careful not to trigger the pressure line. Metal ticked. His mask fogged. Somewhere behind them, A pipe shifted with a wet, hollow sound. The wall opened. The black compartment was smaller than Eli expected, just a narrow service cavity with a hardened data core locked behind two plates. Sometimes the worst crimes were stored where no one wanted to crawl. Eli connected the reader. The screen woke. Then it began to erase itself. Damon, Eli said. Liora grabbed the side of the compartment to stay upright. Can you stop it? I can slow it. He cut the transmitter line, then jammed a copper bridge across the backup channel. Sparks snapped against his glove. The smell of burned insulation filled the mask. The data stream stabilized, but only partly. Pull. The core, Liora said. It's bonded. Then break the bond. Eli laughed once, short and breathless. I like you better awake. He set the cutter to a narrow flame and worked around the core mount. The heat had to be low enough not to cook the memory, fast enough not to let Damon erase it, steady enough not to ignite whatever chemical had been leaking behind the wall for years. His right glove smoked. Liora swayed. Sit down, Eli ordered. If I sit, I may not stand. Then lean on me. She did, just enough to keep her feet. The last bond snapped. Eli pulled the data core free. The ship groaned. A pressure alarm, old and half-dead, began to click. Not a siren, just a hard mechanical tick that sped up with each second. Leora's eyes widened. Blue line reopened. Can we go back? Not through that hall. Other way. She pointed to a lower service chute. It was barely wide enough for a person. Waste heat path. Eli looked at it. That is a pipe. Yes. Of course it is. He clipped the data core to his belt, helped Liora down, and crawled after her into the chute. The pipe was slick. Eli's burned hand throbbed. Liora moved ahead, following marks only she could see. Twice she stopped him before he put his weight on weak metal. They came out through a maintenance grate near the outer hull, coughing into the rain. Eli landed on his hands and knees in the mud. The data core struck the ground beside him, but did not break. Liora collapsed against the hull. Across the yard, Damon Crail stood beside his white vehicle, watching them. For the first time, his face was not calm. Harlan had cut power to the far lane. Eli saw it as soon as he looked toward the shop. The yard lights near his building were dark. The fan inside the plastic enclosure ran on the old backup battery, and the backup battery had never been faithful. He grabbed Liora under the arm and helped her up. Can you walk? If I must. You must. They staggered back through the rain. Inside the shop, June was hand-pumping air through a spare filter while Nell held the hose steady near Tavi's mouth. Oren stood on a chair, pressing tape over a tear in the plastic sheeting. Mara argued with someone on her tablet, her voice controlled but fierce. I have biological victims on site, an active toxic leak, and evidence of false salvage classification, she said. I do not care what Northstar filed. I need a temporary hold now. Eli slammed the data core onto the bench. Mara, she turned. Tell me that is what I think it is. It's the black compartment record. Damon tried to erase it. Liora pulled off her mask. Her lips were almost colorless. It has names they turned into weight. June looked at Eli's glove. Your hand. Later. The door opened before anyone could say more. Damon stepped inside with two recovery agents. They carried scanners, not weapons, but the collars answered with a chorus of amber lights. The children cried out. Nell put herself in front of Tavi. Eli stepped between Damon and the plastic enclosure. Damon's voice was still polite, but the skin around his eyes had tightened. Mr. Mercer, you have stolen proprietary data, destroyed bonded equipment, interfered with recovery devices, and endangered attached biological assets. This ends now. They're not assets. Your vocabulary does not alter their contract status. June stood beside Eli. The medical status does. They are under care. Damon glanced at her. Temporary local care does not supersede interstellar property attachment. Mara lifted the data core. False environmental and cargo declarations may. You have no verified chain of custody. We have a ship, a leak, injured children, and your company trying to erase a record. You have confusion, Damon said. Northstar can help resolve it. His scanner chimed. Leora's collar lit white. She gasped and dropped to one knee. Every child's collar flashed in answer. Damon did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Recovery protocol has begun. Transfer the units and the data core, and I will suspend the pulse. Refuse, and any biological damage will be recorded as the result of unlawful tampering by Eli Mercer. The words landed where Damon aimed them, on Eli's empty bank account, broken shop, old accident record, and the fact that men like him were easy to blame because they could not afford to argue long. Tavi made a small choking sound. Eli looked at the regulator he had built from the cold core stabilizer. It shook on the bench, struggling against the recovery pulse. The field was holding, but not enough. Liora's collar was the lead. As long as it stayed active, Northstar could reach all of them. The lead band has to come off, Eli said. Liora, still on one knee, looked at Tavi. His first. No, Eli said. Yours controls the group. If I take his first, Damon still owns the signal. If mine fails, I may not survive. If yours stays on, all of you might. Liora closed her eyes. The shop filled with sound. Rain on roof. Children breathing. The regulator rattling. Damon's scanner counting down. Liora opened her eyes and climbed to her feet. June Park, she said. June looked up. Write my name. June's voice softened. I already did. Again. Full. Liora Renn. Route marker. Guardian of 7 children. Not asset. Not residue. June wrote it. Liora stepped to Eli's workbench and sat in the old metal chair he used when his knee hurt. She lifted her chin, exposing the thick collar. Do it, she said. Eli washed his burned hand in alcohol and ignored the pain. He set the signal blocker to maximum. The shop lights flickered. The old fan dipped, then recovered. He fitted 2 insulated clamps around Liora's collar and connected the reader. The screen filled with unstable lines. Damon took 1 step forward. Roy Vance, the yard's forklift driver, appeared in the open doorway behind him, soaking wet and broad as a wall. Forklift died behind your car, Roy said. Damon did not look back. Move it. Brakes are funny in rain. Mabel Cross, who ran the night food truck by the south fence, pushed in past Roy with an armful of blankets. She was 60, short, and had no patience for anyone whose shoes cost more than her stove. Children first, she said, and handed blankets to June. Sam Dyer, the old gate guard, spoke from behind the recovery agents. County Rescue is at the service gate. Main gate system seems to have misplaced my password. Strange morning. Harlan Pike stood in the rain beyond them. He looked sick with fear. Then he looked at Tavi. I turned the lane power back. On, he said gruffly. Don't make me regret it. Eli did not have time to answer. Liora's collar whined. Eli, June said. Her pulse is dropping. He focused on the band. Machines told stories if you knew how to listen. The collar was no different. It had a feed line, a return line, a lock circuit, a punishment circuit, and a signal braid that kept trying to call home. Eli did not need to understand every language in the galaxy. He understood fear built into metal. He cooled the lock circuit first. He cut the return line second. The collar jerked tight. Liora's hands clenched on the sides of the chair, but she did not cry out. The children watched through the plastic. Nell had both hands over Tavi's ears, though Tavi would not look away. Damon's scanner counted faster. Final warning, Damon said. Eli leaned closer to the collar. You ever fix a machine with somebody shouting at you? He asked. Mr. Mercer. I haven't. He cut the signal braid. The regulator on the bench sparked. The lights went out for 1 full second, and in that second the whole shop existed by sound alone. Zang. Breath. A small child whispering. Then the emergency lamp came on. The collar opened. It fell from Liora's throat and struck the concrete floor with a small, dead sound. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just metal, no longer pretending it owned a life. Across the room, the amber lights on the children's collars went dark. Tavi drew a full breath. Liora touched her bare throat as if she did not trust the air around it. June laughed once, almost a sob, then went back to work. Mara lifted her tablet. Temporary Earth hold is approved. Gull Point Yard Lot 7, Northstar Shipment 974, and all connected Gray Line route imports are under biological safety lockdown. No removal of persons or data. Damon stared at her. You do not understand the scale of the liability you are creating, he said. Mara's voice was cold. I am beginning to. County rescue workers pushed in through the side door with portable warmers and medical tanks. Sam held the door. Roy kept standing in front of Damon's agents. Mabel wrapped Nell in a blanket and told her, very firmly, that soup was not paid back with work. Harlan Pike stood outside in the rain, watching his yard become evidence. Eli sat down hard on the floor beside the workbench. His burned hand throbbed. His cold core was ruined. His rent was still unpaid. Northstar would not forget his name. But Tavi was breathing. Liora was alive. The collar lay open on the floor. That was enough for the next minute. Sometimes, when you were poor enough, the next minute was a future too. The investigation did not become a grand trial broadcast across the stars. It became work. Mara sealed the ship. June finished 7 medical charts and 1 for Liora. County Rescue moved the children into a mobile care unit, but they did not move them off Earth. Not while Northstar still claimed them. Not while their collars, their records, and the black compartment data told a different story. The first Earth order was narrow and practical. No ship in the connected lot could be cut, moved, weighed, or melted until independent life checks were complete. Northstar protested through channels Eli would never see. Damon Crail made statements about confusion, contract irregularities, and local overreach. But the data core did what Liora had promised. It did not shout. It did not accuse. It simply remembered. It remembered heat logs in compartments marked empty, oxygen ration pools after crews were supposedly removed, small bodies counted by weight, and a phrase disposed with material beside signatures that had once belonged to living people. Because June had written names into Earth medical records before Northstar could remove them, the Renari at Gull Point Yard were no longer only a line in a transport claim. They were patients, witnesses, children, people. 3 more ships from Gray Line route were intercepted before they reached poorer ports. The third carried 2 adults locked behind a heat exchange wall, alive because Earth inspectors had learned to listen before cutting. Eli heard about it from Mara 2 weeks later. He was on a ladder, patching the hole in his shop roof with a piece of old shuttle skin when she walked up from the yard road. "You should sit down," she called. "If it's bad news, I like to be standing. Saves time." They found 2, alive, in a heat wall outside series traffic. Eli stopped with 1 screw half-driven. Below him, Gull Point Yard was changing. Not beautifully. Salvage yards did not become beautiful because someone did the right thing. There were still puddles, rust, unpaid bills, and men yelling over crane noise. But at the front of Lot 7, the old floor scale had been moved aside. In its place stood a yellow frame with listening plates, heat probes, and a sign painted by Mabel. No cutting before a life check. The men in the yard had started calling the new procedure the listening pause. At first, they said it with awkward humor because workers did that when something mattered too much. Then it became habit. A ship came in. The torch crews lined up. The cranes settled the hull. And before anyone cut, the machines went quiet for 10 seconds. 10 seconds was not much. But in those 10 seconds, Gull Point Yard changed what a dead ship meant. No one said, "It's only scrap," until they had listened. Eli climbed down from the ladder. "Too alive," he said. Mara nodded. "Because your ugly signal blocker gave our engineers ideas. Because Leora's route marks told inspectors where to look. Because June's charts made it impossible to call them cargo. Because half this yard swore statements even after Northstar threatened contracts. Because Tavi knocked," Eli said. Mara smiled sadly. "That too." Eli looked toward the mobile care unit parked beyond the office. Liora stood near its open door, wrapped in a gray earth blanket, watching the children try sunlight. That was how Eli thought of it. Trying sunlight. The Renari did not run into daylight like children in stories. They stepped into it carefully, as if light might be another rule. Nell kept close to Tavi. Oren watched rain rings spread across a puddle. Tavi saw Eli and lifted one hand. He was still too thin. They all were. Healing did not arrive like a rescue vehicle and fix everything by evening. But he was not apologizing for the air anymore. That counted. Liora walked toward Eli. Her throat was bare except for a soft medical wrap. In her hand, she carried the cut band. "June says we leave today," she said. "Where to?" A shelter site inland. Warm air. No engines in the walls. She looked back at the children. They are afraid of quiet rooms. I told them quiet can be safe here. I hope I did not lie. You didn't. She held out the collar. Eli did not take it at first. That belongs in evidence. Mara made scans. June made records. Earth has enough metal. Liora's fingers tightened around it. I want this one to stay where it died. He took the collar. It was lighter than he expected. A cheap thing, in the end. Cheap metal, cheap cruelty, expensive consequences. What will you do? He asked. Liora looked toward the listening frame at Lot 7. A crew had just set a new hull section down. The foreman raised one hand. The cutters stopped. The crane stopped. Even the men talking by the coffee heater went quiet. 10 seconds. Rain on metal. Wine through broken ships. Somewhere, a listening plate hummed softly against a sealed hatch. Liora watched until the foreman lowered his hand and work resumed. I will help them read the marks, she said. Renari marks. Worker marks. The ones companies do not put in manuals. If other ships come, Earth should know where poor people hide when no one is supposed to find them. Ili nodded. He did not tell her she had done enough. People who had been used as tools did not need to be told to stop having purpose. They needed the right to choose it. A horn sounded from the care vehicle. The children began climbing in. June helped Tavi up the step. Nell turned back for Oren. Oren turned back for the little ones. It was a chain of care so practiced it hurt to see. Harlan Pike stood near the office with his hands in his pockets. He had not apologized in words. Harlan did not know how to do that without choking on it. But he had signed the witness statement. He had restored Eli's power. He had told Northstar's agents to leave his yard until Earth finished every scan. And that morning, an envelope had appeared under Eli's shop door with a note that said Renn extension, 30 days. 30 days was still not salvation. It was a start. Mabel had brought soup again. Roy had found spare roofing panels. Sam had rewired the side gate. Earth, Eli was learning, did not always stand behind you like a flag. Sometimes it stood behind you like a tired forklift driver pretending his brakes had failed. Liora paused at the care vehicle door. For a moment, she looked exactly as she had in the fuel core, standing between danger and the children. Then Tavi tugged her sleeve, and the image broke. She was not in the core, not in the dark, not holding a cracked filter between children and poison air. She was in a dirty earth salvage yard under a pale afternoon sky, and no one was ordering her back into the machine. Tavi pressed his small hand to the window after the door closed. Eli lifted his bandaged hand. Tavi tapped the glass. 1, 2, 3. The sound was faint through the window, almost lost under rain and engines. But Eli heard it. The first time, those 3 knocks had come from inside a dead ship, asking if anyone outside still believed a hidden life mattered. This time, they came from daylight. Not a plea, not an apology, a goodbye. The vehicle rolled down the lane between stacks of scrap. Workers stopped to watch it pass. Some raised hands. Some looked away. At Lot 7, the crew had already begun the next listening pause. 10 silent seconds before flame touched metal. Eli stood with the dead collar in his hand until the care vehicle passed through the gate and turned toward the inland road. Then he walked back to his shop. There was a roof to patch, a burned regulator to rebuild, a debt to argue down, a statement to sign, a new listening frame to wire before the next ship came in. The galaxy beyond Earth would still have clean papers and dirty routes. It would still have companies that called hunger a contract and breathing a cost. Eli knew that. Everyone at Gull Point knew that. So they changed what they could reach. Before the next cutter lit, Eli crossed the yard to the newly arrived hull. He placed one listening plate against the cold metal and waited with the rest of the crew. For 10 seconds, Gull Point Yard held its breath. No one spoke. No one laughed. No one called it only scrap. In that quiet, Earth did not promise to be perfect. It did not promise to be rich. It did not promise that mercy would be easy or cheap. It only promised this. If something inside the dark still had strength enough to knock, someone outside would stop cutting long enough to hear. Maybe that was what made Earth different. Not because we were the strongest world in the galaxy. Not because we always knew the right answer first. But because somewhere in a cold junkyard, with rain on the roof and dead on the wall. One tire mechanic stopped his cutter when he heard 3 small knocks from inside the dark. He did not ask what they were worth. He did not ask who owned them. He did not ask whether helping them would cost him everything. He only opened the hatch. And because he did, a group of children who had been counted as scrap learned that a name could matter more than a number. A breath could matter more than a contract. A life could matter more than the weight of metal. From that day on, before Earth cut into any dead ship, people paused and listened. Because sometimes the smallest sound in the dark is not a machine cooling down. Sometimes it is someone the universe forgot, still asking to be found. If this story moved you, please give the video a like. It helps more people find stories like this. Share it with someone who still believes kindness has a cost, but is worth paying. And if you want more science fiction stories about humanity standing up for the forgotten, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you for listening. Until the next story, remember this. A world does not become a sanctuary because it has the tallest walls. It becomes a sanctuary because when someone knocks from the other side, someone is still willing to open the door.